بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد إخوة الإسلام عباد الله. I welcome you to another episode of Urban Duat Dialogue, and this particular series is to highlight the efforts of brothers involved in dawah within inner city and or urban areas within here within the U.S. And as usual, I have a special guest, and instead of me introducing the guest, as usual, I'll allow the guest to introduce himself, and that leads to the very first question: who are you, and what are you currently doing in terms of dawah today? تفضل يا أخي.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Najeeb, for inviting me to speak on your platform and trusting me to represent the dawah in general and the dawah in the West specifically in the proper fashion. As for me, my name is Hasan, Abdur Rahman Al-Amriki, and I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, born and raised. And however, I currently reside in Greensboro, North Carolina. I believe part of the question was, what am I currently doing in dawah?
Hey, now.
Hey, now. Well, most of my dawah right now is transitional because when I'm in the States, I'm actually a traveler. I no longer reside in the States. But when I do come to the States, I'm here as a traveler. I'm here as a guest, if you will. So while I'm here, I travel normally from state to state, although I do, attend or teach at specific places normally, but most of my dawah is transitional. So I'm giving dawah and classes and khutub at Masjid Umar in Woodlawn, Maryland. And I do that from time to time. Likewise, in Greensboro, North Carolina, at Masjid Ahl Sunnah. So they're the main two places that I transition in between. As far as my traveling dawah, then of course in Philadelphia at Masjid Wasatiyah, I was invited at UM to moderate at UMA also within the last year. Also at Masjid Quran wa Sunnah in New York, I've traveled there. I've also spoken at Coppin University on mental health. I've spoken at George Mason University in Virginia, also at Johns Hopkins University, as well as other places like that. So I normally do a lecture circuit, and then my normal dawah is a platform that I call Men and Women of Principles, where I do teacher training courses, and normally I try to get between 10 and 15 brothers and sisters, 10 brothers and 10 sisters, in order to teach a teacher training course, in order to have qualified people to teach the fundamentals of Islam in the West.
Now, you mentioned a lot of things that you participate in.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that with all of these things that you're doing, you've been back in the States for a very short period. Could you elaborate to the people who are viewing how long you've been back in the States, and that's forth and so on?
Oh, now. Okay, so I've been back in the States since 2019. And basically, I never really intended, and maybe this is not a good thing, but to be honest, I never intended dawah in the West, in reality. I really wanted to focus my dawah on poor Muslim countries because of my personal philosophy and reading the works, because I never had a chance to study with the Sheikh, rahimahullah ta'ala, but reading the works and listening to the positions of Sheikh Al-Albani Likewise, his view was that the efforts and the money that is spent on some of these wealthier countries, that it would have more of an impact if it was done in poorer Muslim countries where the people were actually Muslim already, and inviting the dawah and that support. So my intentions actually were to give dawah in poor Muslim countries, whether that be in Africa or Southeast Asia or Asia in general. However, in 2009, while I was studying with Sheikh Muhammad Hasuna, rahimahullah ta'ala, he advised me to give dawah in the West. And I told him that I wasn't going back to the West, so that would be difficult. And he said, they have more right to you than other places. And I said, well, I don't plan on going back. And he said, I'm not telling that you have to go back, but when you go back, then you should give dawah. And I said, well, I'm not going to volunteer, but if I'm asked, I'll do it. So this is when I actually began accepting any type of position, for lack of a better expression, of giving dawah. It was after that. So 2012 was the first time, and that was at Masjid Furqan. I was here briefly, and then I returned. So then in 2019, when I came back, my daughter's uncle, brother Abu Fatima Ali Al-Ghambi from Gambia, he, helped out at Masjid Umar in Maryland. So I was originally in Detroit at Masjid Taqwa, helping Sheikh Muhammad down there. And then I was requested by my daughter's uncle. He's our uncle through marriage. She's married to his nephew. So he requested me to come to Maryland, and that's when I began giving dawah there. And then after that, the Masajid and the DMV, brother Abu Zayn and other brothers requested me to come out. So I went to the masjid in Avondale and other places like that. So it was basically upon request. So wherever I'm requested, I normally appear and, try to help out as much as possible.
Yeah, barakallahu fi. Very, very understandable.
No.
Recently, you did a clarification concerning a da'i in Britain with a similar name as yours. Can you clarify the distinction between yourself and this individual and this other da'i in terms of identity?
Nah, yeah, this is even when I first began my own dawah platform in 2017. And I started a teacher training program, but it was distance learning. Once again, the same name, Men and Women of Principles. Our calling card was principles are all that matter. So as I put out the registration form, people were inboxing me. This is when we had a Facebook page. We no longer have a Facebook page. But when we had a Facebook page and everything like that, people were asking me, well, there's some people speaking against you. And I said, no, there's no one speaking against me. They said, yes. And then they would send me a video. So when they sent me the video, I noticed that Ustad, mashallah, may Allah preserve him, Abdur Hasan. Abdur Hasan. So our names are reversed. His name is Abdur Hasan, and my name is Hasan Abdur Rahman. He resides in England. I reside in the United States. And this is just the distinction in name and in proximity or in location. Likewise, from what I've witnessed from his lessons, and I haven't watched anything extensively, but I've witnessed his lessons, and I've sat with some people or spoken with some people who have benefited from him. It appears to me, and Allah knows best, that Ustad Abdur Rahman Hasan is more knowledgeable than I am. So these are the distinctions that I see. Mashallah, he's well traveled, and his studies are, mashallah, very extensive. And I don't know him personally, but he seems to be a very learned, very versed brother concerning the Arabic language, concerning the Quran, and other than that, in principles of the religion, although I don't know him personally. So also, I believe he's of Somalian descent.
Yeah, I think that's a big distinguishment too.
Right, yeah. I'm not Somalian.
He has a different ethnic background. He's from a different country.
Yeah, and his name is different, yeah.
But unfortunately, sometimes people can kind of be lazy in distinguishing simple differences. For me, the differences are clear.
No.
But like I said, sometimes it takes a clarification, so to speak.
Yeah, even in the science of hadith, we don't even fall under muttafiq. And
Okay,
muttafiq, is when the two different narrators have the exact same name
exactly.
and their fathers have the same name. So we don't even fall under muttafiq.
It's like I said, man. I think sometimes people are just lazy with making the distinguishment.
Yeah, yeah.
Allah knows best. But I guess is that one of the reasons why you put the Al Amriki on back of your name from the perspective of distinguishment?
No, actually, Al-Amriki was added to my name while I was writing an explanation to Thalathat al-Usul
Mm-hmm.
under the supervision of Sheikh Muhammad Hassuna.
Hey.
So I began in 2007, and the explanation was finished in 2009. And then the Sheikh was writing his introduction. And when he saw my name, as I typed it up, and he saw my name, I said Hasan Abdur Rahman. And he said, why don't you put Al-Amriki? And I said, I don't want to associate myself with that place. It's like, it's not a big deal. He said, why not Hasan al-Basri? And he began naming, this is something the Salaf did. And to state where you're from, it doesn't matter if that person's a Muslim country or not. This is where you're from. Salman al-Farisi. Persia wasn't a Muslim country when Salman was al-Farisi and like that. And I said, I know, but, I would rather, I didn't want stating my nationality to affect the acceptance or rejection of my writings. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, I feel that you should write it. And as a matter of fact, he ordered me to write it. He said, because it will be an encouragement for your people and a wake-up call for my people. So write Al-Amriki. So from then on, I became Hasan Abdur Rahman Al-Amriki.
Hey, mashallah. I could see the logic in that, and Allah knows best.
Yeah.
So when, and I know this is probably going to be a fascinating response, but tell us when and how you accepted Islam.
Wow. Actually before the interview, I looked at the question and I said, no, I said, because it's so much detail to it. I don't want to take up too much of the people's time, but I'll try to give.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Akhi. These stories are inspirational to people, though, and I think one, then two, I don't think a lot of the brothers realize how people view brothers involved in dawah.
No.
And it's almost as if we're viewed like above being fallible, or people just have a high outlook.
Right.
On others. They have So one of the things that interviews of this nature does, it kind of humanizes us with the people as well.
No.
We're brothers that are struggling just like the people who are viewing may have struggled. No. We're people who Allah Ta'ala has aided in some regards. Yeah. And these stories are means of inspiration for some people. It helps them along the way as well.
Yeah.
So even if it's a little detail, we welcome the detail, but especially considering the fact that we can go for 2 hours and 30 minutes anyway. So, but I try and cut it. I try and cut them at 2 hours and 30 minutes, Yeah. So, and judging by the time, we've only been speaking for 14 minutes. So we have more time.
MashaAllah. Okay, I'm going to give you the cut version, but but I'll give you, inshallah, enough to let everyone know that as a human being sitting here, and basically, I like the point that you're making, and I think that's very important. It's important for those, through my travels, what I've seen and what I've witnessed from different type of prejudice that exists with certain people. Because I don't like to say in Islam, because there's no prejudice in Islam. But the people who are in Islam, they have different type of prejudice. So from the type of prejudice that exists in Islam is the born Muslim versus the one who accepted Islam.
Mm.
You know, as a matter of fact, I was working as a journeyman electrician. It was all Muslims, and I think it was really famous. Everybody used to call it the light crew. And I was working with the Muslims doing that. And I had a joke, and it was Ali, a brother named Ali, and he's actually one of the sons of Sheikh Farid Abdullah.
Hey, oh, so you were working with the brother out of, yeah. I don't think he goes by that name anymore. I don't recall his the new name that he adopted.
About Yusuf Abdullah.
Hey.
Yeah. He was the manager of the crew. Yeah. So Ali, I came back from Egypt and I was working on the crew, and Ali, one of the sons of Sheikh Farid, he was on the crew with me. Mm-hmm. So you'll find this out once I tell the story of how I accepted Islam. My name is Hasan by birth. Mm-hmm. You know, I was given a Muslim name, but I wasn't born a Muslim. Okay. So you know, I'm just bringing this point up about the benefit of even telling stories like this, because what happened was I had a joke that was making while we were on the crew. So I was saying, you know, telling the brothers, listen, were you born in or were you sworn in? You know what I'm saying? Were you born a Muslim or did you take Shahada? So because of my name, everybody thought I was born a Muslim. So I was joking, and then some brothers were sad because of that, because they thought I was saying that a born Muslim was better than someone who accepted Islam and like that. So they were saying, you shouldn't say that because Allah knows best who has the most taqwa. And Ali, he knew that I had taken Shahada. I shared it with him. He knew I wasn't born a Muslim. So he was just laughing. And I kept saying, I don't know about y'all sworn ins. You know, like that. And we were joking. And then after that, I told the brothers, no, actually, I took Shahada in 94. And I became Muslim in 94. They was like, but your name, did you change your name or what? I said, no, actually, the strange thing is that I'm the middle child of 7 children. So the thing that is one of the prejudices that exists, to go back to the point that it seems like you were indicating to, is that sometimes people think being born a Muslim makes you a better Muslim by default. And that's not a reality. And being, and you experience this sometimes even when, especially when going abroad to Muslim countries, where when something is seen to be out of place with somebody who's from a Muslim country and born a Muslim, they believe that someone who had accepted Islam has no right to correct them because I am correct by default because I'm born a Muslim. You're just learning, and this is not a reality. And this reminds me of an athar from Umar radiallahu anhu when he said, "Tunqadu urad Islam urwatun urwa idha nashal fil Islami man la yarf al jahiliyyah." He said that the thresholds of Islam will be destroyed one by one if there grew in Islam a nash'ah. إذا نشأ في الإسلام من لا يعرف الجاهلية, those who didn't know jahiliyyah. You know, and when we look at the danger in the shirkiyat, the acts of polytheism that people from Muslim countries or born Muslim fall into due to their ignorance of Islam by the mistake of believing that whatever my family taught me is correct because I'm born a Muslim. Versus the person who accepted Islam, they believe that whatever my family taught me is wrong because I was not a Muslim. So they're more prone to actually research to make sure that what they're doing is from the religion, where others believe that, okay, whatever I do is by default, hence they fall into celebrating the Prophet's birthday. Hence they fall into wearing hijab improperly because, oh, my parents, this is why I wore hijab, nobody ever told me it was wrong and things like that. So that's just, you know, to make the point of it being important that none of us automatically attain a righteousness or taqwa by default. Not somebody becoming Muslim, nor somebody being born a Muslim. But everybody has to strive and make the same effort as the others or more in order to understand this religion properly. So, you know, I'm the middle child of 7 children. My 3 eldest brothers and sisters, they have your normal, you know, American names, Anthony, Angela, and Crystal. And there was sort of a renaissance in the African-American community when I was born, the year I was born. And either people were Afrocentric, they were taking up some type of religion, they were becoming communist, but it was some type of revolt rather against basically what was done through slavery to African Americans. Hence, they
Christianity,
wanted
basically.
Naam, Fadda.
No, you were saying Christianity, basically.
Yeah, against Christianity, against basically every indoctrination that stripped them of their original identities.
Hmm.
So my parents were involved in this transition, in this renaissance. So hence me being the first child born to my parents while this renaissance was going on, I received the Muslim name.
MashaAllah.
And it's a, it's a murakkab. It's not, my father's name. My father, rahimahullah, his name is Frank. And but I was given the name of Hasan. My real name actually is Hasan. Hasan. And what happened was later on, and I'll get into the story. Later on, when I accepted Islam, I was told that there's no such thing as Hasan because of the mispronunciation. Because everybody pronounced it Hasan. So somebody was telling me, no, there's no such thing as Hasan in Arabic. You're either Hasan or Hussein. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, I'm Hasan. And then that's since then I've been going by Hasan. So I was given the name Hasan at birth. My parents had a touch-in with the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Kufr, and they followed that briefly. After that, they abandoned it. My mother began practicing a mixture of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. As a matter of fact, we would pray in sujood, but she would say the Lord's Prayer from Christianity, and then she would recite Al-Fatiha. My father didn't have anything in his home except a picture was on his wall above his bed. My father was separated at this point. He had a picture on his wall above his bed of Elijah Muhammad. And the only religious book we had in the house was the Bible. I always called my father Abu. We would go in and out of giving salams and not giving salams. I was always an avid reader from a young age, delivering speeches, poetry, and things like that, and an activist. So from a young age, I became an atheist. I became an atheist. I saw my mother praying. I saw the difficulties she went through, different family trauma and drama that we went through. I became an atheist due to that. And through atheism, I began to challenge religion, any religion. As a matter of fact, I welcome any religious doctrine so that I could be able to battle it and prove it was wrong. As a matter of fact, it was like a hidden desire in me that I needed to prove it wrong. So anytime I was asked, why are you not this or why are you not that? I had my reason. I read your book. Your book says this, you do that. Your book says this, you do that. And I would have my reason for not being whatever that religion is, whether it be Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or anything else. So to make a long story short, because of my name, many of my friends and other than my friends would ask me about Islam. I never ate pork, but me eating pork wasn't a religious thing. I never stood for the flag in school, even from elementary school. I never stood for the flag or any of those things. As a matter of fact, I used to rap. So I was in a competition in New Jersey at Eastside High Complex, where they made the movie Lean on Me about that school. So I was in a competition at Eastside High Complex. I won the competition. Whoever won the competition got to go on the Apollo. So I won and I got to go on the Apollo. And the strange things about it, I was anti-structure. When anybody tried to reform me to make me follow somebody's doctrine, what I believed at that time to be man-made doctrine and man-made rules, I was against it. So when I went on the Apollo, and it's time for me to perform, and they wanted me to wipe my hands on the log. So to me, that's superstition. So I didn't wipe the log. So my only response when I refused to wipe the log was, I said, I don't believe in a log, I believe in Allah. but I wasn't Muslim. I wasn't Muslim. This was 91. So, you know, of course, that caused the crowd to be upset with me, and I eventually was booed.
Okay.
You know, because of that. You know, they let me get through the first verse, and it was fine. But the second verse, they said, "No, this guy didn't touch the log. He has a problem." And you know, the New York Philly thing. You know, that's always been a thing in New York in the rap industry.
Well, you might. Well, I'll say that question for another time, because the reality is, me coming from LA,
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with Philly, New York, Jersey, and like this. You know, that's long distance. We're on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
So back in the day, we didn't really know too much about what was going on in these places outside of the music that we listened to or the movies that we watched. You know, so those intricacies that you're referring to now, the people from Philly and New York know exactly what you're
Yeah.
talking about. But back home, they may, maybe a little bit, may need a little bit more clarity. But I don't. But continue what you were saying. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to cause you to become sidetracked.
No, no, that's okay. Yeah, it was a big, you know, back in those days, it was a big rap battle, break dance battle, and popping battle between Philly and New York. You know, that was a big thing. That was way before the East Coast, West Coast thing. It was Philly against New York. That was the thing. New Jersey didn't really have mention back then. They didn't have any really known rappers. They came later on in the 90s, the New Jersey rappers. So it was either Philly rappers or New York rappers during that time now. So I made that statement then. Anyway, as my life is unfolding, I'm getting older. I had a very close friend of mine. His name was Matthew Smith. And his family's originally from Jamaica, but they settled, I believe his father may have been the first one of them to settle in America, in the United States. And we were really close. And it was maybe 2-year run, 3-year run of my life where I became really wild. I became wild, you know, due to an incident that happened between my older brother and I. You know, my older brother was my hero, Tony. He's still alive. May Allah guide him to Islam. I mean, he was my hero. And, you know, like I said, my mother and father were separated at the time. And my mother worked as a seamstress. I forget the name of the company, rahimahullah ta'ala, but she made army suits and American flags for the government. And as a seamstress for this company. And my brother got into the drug game. And I was at this stage of my life, I was still an activist. And my mother said, listen, I think your brother selling drugs. Miss Pearl was an older lady that lived on the block, told me that, told my mother that she believed there's some drug activity going on from her home. So my mother said, you know, if you see anything strange, you let me know. So one day I came in, it was a Jamaican guy named Patrick. He was counting bags of cocaine on my mother's front porch. She had an enclosed porch. And then we had 2 glass doors that led to the living room. So I saw him doing that. And I said, you know, what are you doing? You criminal, get these drugs out of my mother's house. And upon me, you know, challenging him like that, he kicked me in my chest straight through the glass doors. Now, and during this time in my life, my brother Tony, no one outside of my age range, even if they were only maybe 2 or 3 years older than me, could say anything to me except that he would pounce on them. This was a different situation. My brother didn't do anything. Likewise, my father, I informed my father. No one could do anything to me that was out of my brother's reach except my father would pounce on him. My father didn't do anything. I informed my mother. And I was expecting, because my brother didn't do anything, that he would be kicked out of the house and everything like that. You know, I was against crime, against, you know, drugs and all of that. When I saw the people around me not respond, it built up a frustration and resentment toward my society. Hence, I got the attitude, you can't beat them, join them. You know, and some other incidents led to that. Long story short, my friend Matthew, you know, his mother used to always tell him, you know, stay away from him. He's wild. And if you accompany this individual, you're going to end up dead or locked up. You know, that began to be the buzz in the neighborhood about myself concerning parents. So one night we're out and we're going to the Chinese store. Matthew was 17. We had a friend named O. Well, I'll just call him O. He was 21, I believe, at the time. I was 17 at the time. And I was saying a joke. I was, as a matter of fact, I had just turned 18. So I said, the joke that I said, I made it. I made it to 18. Now all I have to do is make it to 25. I was telling a friend, oh, you made it to 21, now you have to make it to 25. And I told Matthew and another friend of ours, Shaveen, I said, you guys got to make it to 18. You know, this is the, you know, if you don't make it to 18, you're going to be dead before you're 18 or before you're 25. All I have to do is make it to 25 now. I've made it. And I kept saying the joke. Now, of course, back then, we didn't know about the iron, you know, but we used to say, jinx, you know, back in Jahiliyyah, you say, don't jinx me. So I kept saying the joke so much, they said, come on, you're going to jinx someone. Anyway, we went to a Chinese store. We got some Chinese food. We all got sick. There's something wrong with the food. We came back, and it was a girl I used to talk to. She had just left and rolled off with some guys. This guy we grew up with, he came up, he asked for her. Now, I'm sorry, no, I'm going too fast. So that night we came back, we were all sick. While we're walking, my friend Matthew said, Has, you know, won't you tell me about, you know, being a Muslim? I said, I don't know anything about being a Muslim. He said, but I thought you were Muslim. I said, I'm not Muslim. He said, but your name? I said, my parents gave me that name. You know, I didn't name myself. He said, well, what do you think about going to the mosque and asking about Islam? I said, okay, no problem. We didn't go immediately. A week later, the incident that I just previously began mentioning, guy came asking about that particular girl. So I made a joke. She just got in a car with a bunch of guys, you know, using explicits and things like that. And he said, what? I said, you heard me. She just got in a car with a bunch of guys. And he said, who's that? Now, me, of course, you know, being a popular person in the neighborhood, that was taken as a challenge or a form of disrespect when somebody says, who are you? And you're known. So I said, you know who I am. And then we went back and forth. Anyway, this is a guy who he wasn't a drug dealer. He wasn't in a gang. And his father had just died. His father was a Vietnam vet. So he inherited guns that his father had because his father died. Instantly, when his father died and he got possession of those guns, he became a tough guy. So he left and he came back. When he came back, he shot up in the air. I was insulted by the gesture. I ran down and I began beating on him. I took the gun from him. My friend Matthew took the gun from me. My eldest daughter was just born at this time. And he said, you know, what are you doing? You gonna get yourself in trouble. You just had a baby, things like that. So anyway, the fight continued. And then after that, they said, you know, come on, we're from the same neighborhood. It shouldn't go like this, squash it. I said, does he want to squash it? That was supposed to be the end of it. I didn't know what happened to the gun. I just knew my friend Matthew took the gun from me. After he got back in the car, I turned around to face, everybody was sitting up on the porch. I turned around to face the crowd and everybody began yelling, watch your back, watch your back, watch your back. I turned around, he has the gun now and he's pointing it at me from the driver's seat. So I raised my hands and said, whatever. He began shooting, I began running toward him. He sped off. He sped off, everybody's laughing. How do you get chased with a gun? How do you get chased with a gun? How do you have a gun and you get chased by somebody unarmed? My friend Matthew was laughing. And then suddenly he began screaming, I'm hit, I'm hit, I'm hit. And he starts running. He ran in the middle of the street. I said, come here, come to me, come to me, come to me. He begins running toward me. And as he got close to me, he fell on his face. Fell on his face. I turned him over. I'm checking for blood. I don't see any blood. So I'm wondering, where is he hit? Where is he hit? I lift up his shirt, and his intestines were coming out of the side. So I began putting his intestines back in. I didn't know what to do. I tried mouth to mouth. You know, African-American community, the first thing that came was a fire truck. Ambulance was the first thing that came. So as I'm giving him mouth to mouth, and the point, inshallah, later on the story, you'll get while the point of me mentioning this. Now, this is the one that told me that he wants to go to the masjid and ask about Islam. Ask me about Islam because of my name. So anyway, I'm giving him mouth to mouth, and his soul left. While I was holding him, I had him on my lap, and his soul left his body. So I laid him down. When I laid him down, that's when everybody began screaming, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead, and I just left. Anyway, after the funeral and everything, I stayed out of the neighborhood. The rumor in the neighborhood was I was the reason for him dying. Basically the warning that the parents, or some of the parents, gave my friends about me, that stay away from him because you'll end up dead and locked up, came true. I felt bad about it. I was almost like basically, thinking in those Jahiliyyah days, it was like I was like an evil omen walking around, like, get away from him, you'll end up dead, you'll end up dead. Anyway, maybe 4 months later, another guy by the name of Farouk, he asked me, Muslim? So I'm trying to figure, what is this angle? So I said, yeah. He said, well, what's Islam about? So I started mentioning the cocktail that my mother had made up, and he laughed. He said, that's not Islam. So he gave me the Al-Fatiha transliterated, a book on the pillars of Islam and Iman. But once again, the only reason he approached me was because of my name. He heard people saying my name, and he asked me, was I Muslim because of that, because he saw that everybody I was around was kuffar. So he began asking me, like, you're a Muslim, why you're not around the Muslims, why you're with the kuffar, and like that. So I began reading about Islam, and subhanAllah, I began reading, it was just like chapters, bits and pieces. And I said, no, I want the book that all of you guys believe in, the whole book. So I was given the Quran translated. As a matter of fact, it was the Yusuf Ali translation with the transliteration. It has the Arabic, the English, and the transliteration. So I'm reading that. So I began from Surah Al-Baqarah, Al-Fatiha Al-Baqarah. And as you know, if you don't have, when you talk Baqarah, Ali Imran, and all of that, if you don't have a scripture, a history in scripture, it doesn't resonate with you. It doesn't resonate with you. So it didn't resonate with me. Okay, what is this about the cow? I don't get it. Anyway, I met another brother by the name of Yusuf. And Yusuf gave me the Quran translated from Dhariyat to Nas. If anyone knows that these Meccan surahs are very, very important for anybody that is a mushrik or an atheist. The Meccan surahs are very important. If you're trying to give dawah, side note, if you're trying to give dawah, and you have to know what a background that the person you're giving dawah to comes from. Because if you're going to be quoting Ali Imran and Baqarah and Surah Al-Maryam and like that, these ayat are for Jews and Christians. But if you're going to be giving dawah to somebody who is an agnostic, who is an atheist, or other than that, then more than likely you're going to need the Meccan surahs. So anyway, I began reading, and the first ayah that affected me was the ayah where Allah Ta'ala says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. So, Allahu Akbar. So when I read that, although the question is rhetorical, were they created from nothing or were they themselves the creators? أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Or have they created the heavens and the earth? Rather, they have no certainty. So this is my challenge now. I have to answer these rhetorical questions. So I'm reading on and on. Then I got to the ayat in Waqi'ah, حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَتِ الْحُلْقُومِ وَأَنْتُمْ هِنَئِذٍ تَنْظُرُونَ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تُبْصِرُونَ. Where Allah Ta'ala said, when the soul reaches the throat in its exit, and you all are the while looking on. But we are closer to him than you are, but you realize it not. فَلَوْلَا إِن كُنْتُمْ غَيْرَ مَدِينِينَ تَرْجِعُونَهَا إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. So if you are free from being held accountable, then bring back the soul if you're truthful. As I'm reading the translation of this ayah, my friend dying in my arms is all coming back to me. And in my soul, I felt that there's no way a human being described the soul exiting the body like this. This is not a human description, because I couldn't, and he died in my arms, I couldn't describe what happened the way this verse was describing it.
MashaAllah.
At that point, I said, this is not the words of a human being. So at that point, I'm challenged. Okay, what are you going to do? If this is true, what are you going to do next? So I said, no, you have to keep reading, because you're going to find something wrong. And when you find something wrong, there's no problem with saying that this religion has some things true about it. But if you find something wrong, then you won't have to follow formal religion. I kept reading. As I read more and more, I had no doubt that, number one, the questions that were rhetorical, that were challenging, it was no way around them for me. I had no doubt that the words of the Quran were not the words of a man. And I had no doubt that Islam was the truth. Now my problem was, do you accept Islam at the age of 18 and bind yourself to these rules and regulations? That was the problem at that point. So I said, I talked to some people that I knew and sought their advice. Nobody that I spoke to had an issue with me being a Muslim. They said, but you're young and Islam has too many rules and regulations. So what we advise you to do is wait until you're older, 40, 45 years old, 50 years old. Wait until you do everything. Because once you become a Muslim, you can't do anything. They said, wait until you do everything, wild, everything crazy, try every drug, be with as many women as you can. And then after that, become a Muslim, and you won't miss anything. But if you become a Muslim now at 18, you haven't tried anything, you're going to be stuck. So I said, you know what? You're right. I'm going to wait and put Islam on the side, and I'll become a Muslim later on in my life. But because, like I said earlier, I've always been an avid reader, I'm still reading while I'm thinking about accepting Islam. So my decision is made. When I'm 40 or 50, I'm going to be a Muslim. What happened? What happened was I continued to read this translation of the Quran until I reached Surah At-Takathur. ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر. When I read that translation, I thought about my friend once again, who died in my arms. And I said, I joked with him about making it to 18 when he was 17. He never made it to 18. The bullet that killed him, the person intended to kill me. So how can I guarantee myself to make it to 40? At that point, I decided, no, I'm going to become a Muslim because I don't know when I'm going to die. And I took Shahada, I believe it was July 1994. July or August 1994.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Let me ask you a question, because Philadelphia, especially at that time, the times that you're referring to in 1994, we know that the Muslims in Islam, there is a strong presence in Philly especially when you compare the Muslims in other major cities.
Mhm.
Its presence and its influence and its visibility, for lack of better expressions, is much more stronger in a place like Philadelphia as opposed to Dallas, Texas, or Los Angeles, California, or
Right.
and that's for so on. At the time, and that's as you were going through your background concerning your name, you being named Hassan, and some of your parents' background, them going through the nation and like this, it's clear that there was some type of influence of Islam in throughout the city at that time. Uh, as it relates to the year and that you accepted Islam, and even in your teenage years prior to your Islam, how was the influence of Islam within the city of Philly? I would imagine that for someone young coming up in Philly around that time, it was almost impossible to kind of get around Islam, and Allah knows best. What would your take on that be?
No, at that time, Islam was really, and really, this is what is a problem. Maybe we can speak on that a little later on. This is the problem. The problem that we're facing today was the problem with dawah with Islam back then. That Muslims seem to give dawah to each other.
Okay.
So there were no really propagators of Islam. You could find somebody in the nation inviting people, but you can find a Muslim that's claiming Quran and Sunnah calling anyone. Similar to today.
Yeah.
You're not going to find a Muslim upon Quran or Sunnah inviting people to Islam, but it's like they're in a kokar. They're like in this bubble, just giving dawah to each other. So that's what Islam was back then. And the people who were maybe more out in the open with their Islam was, people like the Worth Deen community. And even them, they were Muslim within themselves, but they didn't invite people to Islam. I don't remember ever being invited to Islam. Even when the years that I was wild, some of my running mates were Muslim. I remember one brother in particular, he was older than me, and we ran doing particular things together. And Ramadan came. And he said, we have to stop, doing what we're doing because Ramadan is coming. So I think that the understanding that we were all bad Muslims, but I actually wasn't a Muslim, but I just had a Muslim name. But that's what the understanding was. And I remember the only thing, closest invitation I got was they were asking me, I think once or twice, the guys I ran with who were Muslim, I know that now, were asking me, am I going to pray with them on Friday? And I said, no. And that was I think that was like twice. And when he said we had to stop because of Ramadan, he said we had to stop for a month. So I just agreed. I didn't know what he was talking about, and I didn't understand the reasoning. But I said, okay, no problem. Maybe it's getting hot. We shouldn't, do the things that we were doing because it's getting hot. So anyway, so I came to visit him one day, and I had a turkey and cheese hoagie. I guess you guys call it subs in Cali or something like that.
Yeah, that term is used.
Okay.
It's a little universal, I guess.
Okay.
Hoagie, subs, same thing, really.
Okay. So I had a turkey and cheese hoagie, a Tahitian treat, and some sour cream and onion chips. I'm having my lunch. So it's like dhuhr. So he said, what's going on? I said, nothing. What's going on with you? He said, why are you eating? I said, why not? He said, it's Ramadan. I said, what does that mean? He said, you're not supposed to eat from dawn till sunset. I said, man, I'm not starving myself for nobody. I said, you're talking about, and that was my response. And he said, what kind of Muslim are you? I said, I'm gonna ask my father. So I went to my father. I said, what kind of Muslims are we? He said, his only answer was, well, we're not Sunni Muslims because Sunni Muslims think they know everything. And that was my encounter with Islam in those years. That had to be like 92 when that happened. So you know, the history of Islam, and without putting anybody on Front Street, the problem is the spread of Islam, or the first people to claim Islam in Philadelphia were either people who were in the nation, or people who claim the nation, working community, or people who claim Islam and they was still had a criminal element to their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but like to see a group of people during that time who called to correct belief and righteous deeds together, that didn't exist to my knowledge. If it existed, like I said, it existed in a bubble. The greatest influence that seemed to be like very religious was the cult, the Ansar cult. That was prevalent.
Okay.
That was prevalent. You know, they had the white robes on, and the women with the white gowns on, and the head covers, and the men stuck together, and they had the security unit. They were prevalent. They were dawah. They had
and at that time they were actually claiming to be Muslim.
Yeah, at that time they were claiming to be Muslim. As a matter of fact, they were putting out those books, 360 questions to ask a Sunni Muslim, 360 questions to ask a Christian. They had those kind of books that they were putting out, causing confusion to true Islam. It was claiming to be Muslim, but still claiming to be the Mahdi at the same time.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, at that time, though, for people who weren't Muslim, seeing the Muslims interact with each other, or just their common dealings with the Muslims in society, regardless if it was business or other than that, the people basically had I would imagine they had a good outlook as it relates to the Muslims, correct or incorrect?
No, that's correct. But however, that reputation wasn't the reputation of the Muslims. It was the nation.
It was the what?
The nation.
Oh, the nation. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That they come to an area, they clean it, you can't sell drugs, they protect, they stick together. In reality, all of that was called Islam.
Yeah, the people weren't distinguishing.
Exactly. So that was the nation. We didn't know of any Muslims claiming the Sunnah that had that effect when it came around.
Yeah.
Wallahu a'lam.
No. In other words, the brothers wasn't really getting into the community like that.
Right. That has always been an issue.
Yeah, long time. My next question would be, how did you hear about Salafiyya? Yani, detail for us your transition from whatever you were upon after accepting Islam to Salafiyya.
When I accepted Islam, I went to Jumu'ah, and the Khatib, after the khutbah, he said, "Is there anybody who wants to become a Muslim?" I stood up. I walked up, and he really emphasized, you have to follow the Quran, and you can't follow the Quran except through following this man, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This emphasis was so detailed, and it was so and he was so serious about it that I always knew that that's the only way you could practice Islam was Quran, was Sunnah. After accepting Islam, I lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina for a while. So I met Muslims there. And during that time, going back to some of what I said earlier, I had the belief that a born Muslim knows more than someone who is born Muslim automatically knows more than someone who accepts Islam. So as I mix in the community and I'm down there in Fayetteville, the community are telling me, yes, you're supposed to grow your beard, but you have to be neat. So they tell me, yeah, keep your beard, meaning you don't shave it all the way off, but still trim it neatly. So I believed them, so I trimmed it. They told me, you're supposed to have your pants above your ankles, but you can't drag them out of pride. And my pants were only rolled up this time. It wasn't tailored or anything like that. I just would have my pants rolled up. And they said, the Imam, I remember, told me, he said, roll your pants down. So I rolled my pants down below my ankles. He said, do you feel any different than you felt before you rolled them down? I said, no. He said, exactly. You know, so I was just basically, this is what I always understood. Without the term Salafiyya, I understood that Quran was Sunnah. This is what I always understood. And then later on, I heard about, after coming from North Carolina and coming back to Philadelphia in 1997 or 98, this is when I actually heard the term Salafiyya. So the first time I heard of the term Salafiyya, it was in Philadelphia. But before that, when I first took Shahada, it was always explained to me, Quran and Sunnah, they go together. You can't have one without the other. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question.
Somewhat, because you said when you came back to Philadelphia, that's when you heard about Salafiyya. So yeah.
So I never attributed myself to any jama'ah before that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, as a matter of fact, the brother that gave me dawah, he was tablighi.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was tablighi. But
in Philly.
In Philly. That was the strongest dawah in Philly was the Jamaat al-Tabligh. If you talk to most people from the 80s to maybe you even go back to the 70s to the 90s to the early and mid 90s, the people that were giving dawah, people were taking shahada under Jamaat al-Tabligh. Mecca Masjid, Masjid al-Hashar. This is who were giving dawah. This is who the people were coming, you know, as far as becoming a Sunni Muslim, they were coming under Jamaat al-Tabligh. So the thing is, even though he gave me dawah, he never gave me dawah to become part of the Jama'ah. He just called me to Islam. He never gave me shahada. He never gave me shahada, but he called me to Islam. So, but the people who were giving dawah and more responsible for, you know, Islam spreading, say, in a Sunni Muslim, were Jamaat al-Tabligh. That's in Philadelphia. That's the reality.
Now, my next question, where did you seek knowledge? Where did you study? And I'm going to add on to that question. What inspired you to go out and study?
Okay. Wow. Well, based on my background and, you know, me kind of being critical person and analytical, I couldn't accept translated faith. You know, that I'm worshiping, but I really don't know what's being said. I'm believing, but is that really what's written? So I needed to know, you know, so that no doubt could come to me. I needed to know what was being said in the original language. And there was a da'i that I really looked up to, I won't mention his name, that, for lack of a better expression, as they say, fell from grace. And I really love this individual. And he did something toward me personally. He didn't know. He still doesn't know. He did something toward me personally. And I said, wow, somebody could be on that level and do that. I'm not, you know, trusting translation anymore. I need to know myself. So I already had a problem with faith through translation. And then when the person that I trusted to translate and relay the information became untrustworthy in my sight, that really pushed me to even go. So that's what made me leave. And, you know, someone that was very paramount in me making the decision to leave when I was confused was Nadir Abu Muhammad al-Jamaiqi. Mashallah, we were working at a school together, elementary school. We actually went up to high school. And we were teaching at the school together, and I kept saying, yeah, I want to go overseas, I want to go overseas. And I was asking, where should I go? And at that time, I was viewing Pakistan, I was viewing India. As a matter of fact, I had been accepted to Jamia Salafiyya in Islamabad. And then one of our brothers, may Allah forgive him, put the ayn on me, in my face. And when he found out about it, he said, yeah, I heard you're going to study. I said, yeah. He said, I heard you're going to Pakistan. I said, inshallah. He said, you're not going anywhere.
SubhanAllah.
I had been accepted. I had the money, and I ended up spending the money. It happened just like that. So anyway, so I talked to Jamaica. Where should I go? Where should I go? And I just kept saying, well, Morocco's like this, and I heard Egypt is like that, and I heard Pakistan is like that, and I heard India is like that, and I kept mentioning all these countries. He said, man, you've been everywhere, and you haven't gone anywhere yet. Just buy a ticket and go somewhere. I got off work. That was when we were at work together. I got off work that day. It was a Bangladeshi brother who had a ticket agency up on Market, right around the corner from Jamia, Masjid Jamia. And I went there and I bought a 1-year round trip ticket and to Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So before leaving, because I think my ticket was a predated ticket, so I had like 6 months to use it. So before leaving, our brother, Hafidullah Ta'ala Abu Bilal al-Suwaidi, I don't know if you know him, he studied in Damaj with Sheikh Mukbil for some time.
No, I never met him, but his name, I don't believe I've ever met him, but his name definitely rings bells.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was talked about. When I say talked about, not talked about in a good manner. His name was mentioned while I was there, but I don't recall ever meeting him.
Yeah, he translated the book by Sheikh Mukbil, The Ruling on Prayer in Your Shoes.
Okay.
And also he translated Sheikh Al-Albani's question and answer session with the brothers in Holland about Hijra.
Okay.
That's his voice. The English version with the voiceover. That's his voice.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that.
That was out early in the late 90s, early 2000s. So he came to America to work for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And he stayed with me at my home. And I was asking him about Yemen. So he told me that he was on his way back to Yemen in a year. So he advised me to go to Egypt and stay in Egypt for a year. And then when he got back to Yemen, he would let me know, and then I could meet him in Yemen. So my first trip, I went to Egypt, and I was supposed to stay in Egypt for a year and then go to Yemen. But an older brother of ours, Mutawakkil Salim, older brother from Philadelphia, he came to Egypt and he said that he wanted to go to Yemen. And so I made istikhara and we ended up going to Yemen together. So that I stayed in Egypt only for maybe 3 weeks, and then I went to Yemen. So from 2001, 2002, I was in Yemen, then I came back, and then 2003, I went right back to Egypt. And that's where the majority of the time I spent was there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the rest of the time I've been there in Egypt now.
MashaAllah. And that's when I met you in 2006.
Nah. No, yeah. MashaAllah.
My next question would be, who were some of the people involved in dawah, regardless if they were here in America or in the lands of the Arab, some of the places that you studied? Who are the people involved in dawah that had a positive influence on you that helped shape the person that you are today, by Allah's permission?
I have to be honest, my influence as far as dawah was Sheikh Muhammad al-Wasadi and Sheikh Muhammad Hassouna. And I can't, wow. Sheikh Muhammad al-Wasadi, Sheikh Muhammad Hassouna, Sheikh Muhammad Haydari. Those three were, as far as teaching methods, manners, the desire to be precise, then that was my main influence. The fact that I even give dawah, of course, that has to be given to Sheikh Muhammad Hassouna. Because other than that, I had, like I said, I never planned on giving dawah, like being on a platform speaking and like that, until that, that he encouraged me to do that, or really ordered me to do that. And Sheikh Muhammad al-Haydari, Hafidullah Ta'ala, I believe he's still alive. I don't know if he's even alive because of what has been taking place in Yemen.
Okay, so Because those names are, I'm unfamiliar with those names. Sheikh Muhammad Hasuna, was he one of your teachers in Yemen or in
No, Sheikh Muhammad
Egypt?
Hassuna in Egypt,
Okay.
and Sheikh Muhammad Haydari, and Sheikh Muhammad Al-Wasabi, of course. Sheikh Muhammad
Yeah.
Al-Haydari, he taught at Masjid al-Sunnah, the Masjid of Sheikh Muhammad Al-Wasabi in Yemen.
In Hudaydah.
In Hudaydah, yes. You know, and Sheikh Muhammad Al-Haydari, you know, he had a very amazing way of teaching, because what he would do is that we would go through Qawl Mufid في أدلة التوحيد لشيخ Muhammad Al-Wasabi and other books of Minhaj and Aqidah. And what he would do is the next day, he would ask us what we learned. So we would quote what we learned with the evidence. And then he would say, "Are you sure I said that?" And so I'm looking like, "Yeah, this is what you said." And he would ask again, "Are you sure this is what I said? This is what I said." We say, "Yeah, this is what you said." And then he would bring us to Shubuhat and say, "Well, if I said that, then how about this? How about this? How about that?" And he would bring the Shubuhat that we may face if we would go out with that, just what we got from the class. And then if we would get shooken up, he would say, "Uthbutu." You know, y'all can't get shooken up so easy. He said the first thing is, so what somebody quotes an ayah? What is his proof that that is the fahm or istizlal of the ayah that he's using? Hence, you know, any of my students, they know that, and you know, in many of my classes, especially in the teacher training program, the first thing I say is, what is dalil? What is dalil? You know, and then I go to, because it's important to know what dalil is, because people seem to believe that as long as they're quoting an ayah, it's dalil. But, you know, and this is a beautiful story that happened in Egypt during the revolution. When the revolution began in Egypt in 2010, and then the idea later on of banning the books of Sheikh al-Islam Taymiyyah, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab, the government said, we're going to ban those books. And they said, because these are the books that teach extremism. MashaAllah, a religious Egyptian who's a layman, he's not a student, he's not from the shuyukh, who's a layman. He said, there's a contradiction. You guys are saying that these people who are going against the government are behaving like the Khawarij. And at the same time, you're saying that they are being influenced by the books of Sheikh al-Islam Taymiyyah and Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab. And he said, this is a clear contradiction, because the Khawarij appeared during the time of the companions. So the original Khawarij were not influenced by Ibn Taymiyyah or Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab. So the issue is not with the books of these scholars, because if that was the case, the Khawarij would not have appeared before them. SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. So the Sheikh, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, if he's still alive, and Rahimullah, if he's passed away, he would bring the Shubuhat and let us know that quoting an ayah or hadith is not sufficient unless you are sure that that is the wajh istidlal. It can be used as evidence for what you're saying. You know, so one of the points that I always bring in the classes, I ask, you know, and I'll just maybe leave this as a benefit while we're speaking. I ask the students all of the time, I ask them, is the Quran and Sunnah evidence? So of course, most people says, yes, of course it's evidence. So my answer is always, the Quran and Sunnah are evidence in and of themselves, but they are not evidence for what a person is using them for until they fit three conditions. The first condition is that it must be authentic. When we say authenticity, when it comes to a verse of the Quran, it means that it cannot be an abrogated ayah. So a person cannot use an abrogated ayah as dalil. As far as the Sunnah, then of course it has to be a hadith يصلح الاستدلال به. That it's proper to use as evidence, meaning in its authenticity. Okay? After we ascertain the fact of it being authentic, then it has to be according to the understanding of the first three generations of Muslims. So it can't go against their understanding. And then once it's upon their understanding, it also has to be according to their implementation. So once it's authentic, if it's not to the understanding of those 3 generations, then it's still not dalil for what the person is using it for. And even if it's authentic and it's according to the understanding of those of the Salaf, if it's not the way they applied it, then it still cannot be used as evidence. Hold on, please. Excuse me. You have to excuse me.
Not best, not best.
Nah. So, you know, that's a point I love to make, because everybody say, what's your dalil, what's your dalil, what's your dalil? What do you mean by dalil? Do you mean simply quoting an ayah? And this is one of the tricks that is, or misunderstandings that is allowing the dawah to continue to be tainted and the dissension to remain, because everybody think that simply having an ayah or hadith is having dalil. Nah.
No. Like you previously mentioned earlier, you've been in various places within the states giving dawah. If you can, please mention some of the unique challenges that you face in these particular areas, and then challenges that were general, that basically encompassed every area that you were in throughout the states.
Okay, so I'll first start with the city that I was born and raised in, Philadelphia. The Muslims in Philadelphia are privileged to the point that they have become delusional. They are privileged of having so much access to people who have benefited by traveling and studying, and the information of the scholars and their names and their history and what books to read, and that information is, they're so privy to that information that, you know, it's a ni'mah. But this favor has made them delusional that that's America. I think sometimes the Muslims in Philadelphia need to leave outside of Philadelphia to realize that, no, you're still in Darul Kufr. You're still hated. That's strictly where you are. That you can pull out a prayer rug and just pray next to any, store and like that you can walk down the street and anybody that you run into is either Muslim or related to a Muslim or dating a Muslim or or works with a Muslim or does business with a Muslim or they're honest married to a Muslim and their uncle is a Muslim. That is a specific dynamic that exists in Philadelphia and in Philadelphia. And if we're going to extend it, maybe tri-state, maybe Philly, New Jersey, and New York at the most. Once you leave that region, you have a totally different dynamic taking place. So this ni'mah, this favor, I see has caused the Muslims in Philadelphia to become delusional. And this delusion has made them complacent. And this complacency has made them not fight to preserve the favor of having an abundance of Muslims and a wealth of people who have actually benefited. To the point that they sit back, and it's like the difference between someone who has a restricted diet and someone who's at a buffet, or somebody that goes to a restaurant that serves particular food. This is a seafood restaurant. Then where you have an open buffet where you can get a chicken, or you can get whatever. So what happens is that you'll see people sit back, ignorant, unlearned, and yet they sit back and pick and choose. I'm not going to his classes, and I'm not going. And they feel privy, while the basics of Islam they have not achieved, and any of the people that they're trying to pick and choose, they could get that from them. But they feel, because of the abundance of people who are disseminating information in Philadelphia, they sit back and pick and choose, and at the end of the day, they end up not benefiting from any of them. And this is one of the dangers I see with the saturation of dua in Philadelphia. It's saturated with dua, and people who are qualified and people who are not qualified. People always have spoken, preached, and talked in the city of Philadelphia and used Philadelphia as a platform and as a satellite, if you will, for dawah. So Philadelphia is the first place. I think that it's important, it's very important for the people of Philadelphia, the Muslims, to wake up and to realize that, yes, they are privileged and that their privilege can be taken away. And the most dangerous way for a privilege to be taken away or a favor to be taken away is that it's taken away while it's still there. Meaning it's there, but the people don't benefit from it. They don't know they've been stripped. Tathabbut. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes a person to not benefit while having the ability. You know, we know from the dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasal, from inability and laziness. And we look at inability. Inability is to have the desire to do a thing, but not the ability to do it. Laziness is to have the ability and be stripped of the desire. So this is what has affected the Muslims of Philadelphia. Laziness. The ability is there. The desire is gone. And this is honestly a Western dilemma. Western dilemma, and I call it the sports culture. If you look at sports in the West, especially in the United States, whether it be boxing, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, or anything else. And if you look at our culture in America, we have a culture of spectate and criticize, even if you're not qualified. So you see guys watching a boxing match, and they say, oh, look at this bum. He should have threw the left. Oh, you got to come on, stick the jab. And the person that's saying this and calling the person a bum, he himself can't fight. You know? So it's like, wow, you get the privilege of spectating and criticizing, although you yourself aren't qualified. You see in the city of Philadelphia, this is the issue. Someone will sit back and they'll be ignorant of Alif Bata. And you'll see conversations, they're sitting back and they have their Starbucks and they're saying, no, you know what? So-and-so's Arabic is stronger than so-and-so. And so-and-so has better Quran. And it's like, wow, you're not even in the conversation. Like, you are not even on the level to have this conversation. If you were to ask them about something as simple as culinary arts, they would say, oh no, I never studied culinary arts. So you remove yourself from criticizing culinary arts, decorating a cake and decorating a platter, but now you have made yourself a critic over Quran and Hadith and Arabic. So that's with Philadelphia. When I came back in 2019, I was in Woodlawn, Maryland, which is basically 15 minutes from Baltimore. The dilemma that I found in that area is that the Muslims don't have a presence. I was almost shot twice in that area. You know, dressed in a thobe and a kufi. I was driving Uber and Lyft. And being from Philadelphia, that's strange for a Muslim, you know, dressed up, not running the streets, not halfway in, halfway out, not in a gang, not in the drug game, to be accosted, to be threatened, while being innocent. That's strange. I'm used to in Philadelphia, if a Muslim dressed in Islamic attire, and he's not one of those 1 foot in, 1 foot out type brothers that people, even kuffar, if they're smoking marijuana, something like that, they'll place it behind their backs out of respect. And they bow and they say, okay, brother, okay, and they even give salams out of respect. So going to other places, seeing that the Muslims didn't have a presence. There was a Bangladeshi brother who worked at the police station who was robbed by 3 guys and a girl, teenagers. And he was in full Islamic attire. He was beat. And
yeah, I saw that. It was an older brother, right?
Yeah. I shared that video in one of the groups that I had. I think you were in.
Yeah. I saw. I can't recall how that came to me, but I did see the video. It was an older brother walking down the street, and these cowards, if I'm not mistaken, they blindsided him.
Yeah.
I saw that video.
Yeah. So this is something strange to Philadelphia.
No.
You see what I'm saying?
I'm gonna
So
be honest with you. That's something strange in LA, just based off the fact that Muslims are somewhat respected.
right, right. So I saw that was absent. So I saw that the Muslims in Maryland, in that area, they don't really have a real presence. They're not present in the community. I mean, and that's basically my observance for the little bit of time that I was there. They don't really have a presence, and like that. So that's a dilemma that need to be. The Islamic appearance is not really important down there. I don't see that really being pushed really heavily down in that area and things like that. And it's just basically the Islamic presence is not really felt when you're down there. You don't feel
Now
it.
you say this is an area called Woodland. So,
Yeah.
so this is separate from Baltimore, or is it like a district within Baltimore?
No, it's separate. It's like that's the county outside of Baltimore.
Okay, but so even when you go into Baltimore County, that dynamic still exists.
Yeah, when I went into Baltimore, that dynamic existed because this is where I was threatened.
Okay, I got you.
This
I
is where I
got
was threatened.
you. No.
And like that. And I mean, and also, and like while doing Uber and Lyft, while driving around, it was like it wasn't that respect that that I was used to the Muslims getting being from Philadelphia. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think the Muslims there are very lackadaisical when it comes to having a presence and being a force that is recognized. The kuffar knowing that if you do something to a Muslim, it's not going to be that simple. And like I think the kuffar in Philly, they know that if you do something to a Muslim, you just bought yourself a problem.
Yeah, when I went to Philly the first time, and this was before September 11th, when Sheikh Saleh Suhaimi and a group of mashayikh from the Islamic University in Medina. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that was my first time going to Philly, and
Mm-hmm.
that was the same year as September 11th. Now, September 11th, was that 2000 or 2001? That was 2001,
2001,
correct?
September 11th, yeah, 9/11.
Yeah, yeah. So it was the same. It was that same year, only it was prior to September 11th because it was during the summer. And I remember one of the brothers, because I met a lot of brothers. I don't remember half the brothers I met back then for that particular trip. But I remember being in the conversation. But one of the brothers said that he said the two most feared entities here in Philly are the Muslims and the mob. And he said in he said it in the sense that nobody better disrespect the Muslims in any shape, form, or fashion, or they know they're going to have problems.
Yep,
They know they're going to have problems.
yep. That was the vibe back then. Yep, yep.
No.
Sure. Now, as far as North Carolina, I haven't been down there for a long time. I've only been down there since June, and everything's been on lockdown.
Yeah.
So it's hard to gauge at this point. However, I can say one of the beauties that I've experienced since I've been down there is that you have 3 and 4 generations, maybe even more than that. Like I said, because everything is locked down.
You say 3, 4 generation Muslims, huh?
Yeah, and I'm talking about not born Muslims, but from starting with a father or a mother that accepted Islam.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 3 and 4 generation Muslims. So when somebody comes to the masjid, normally when you see a brother come to the masjid, it's him and his children.
Okay.
So it's like whole families coming out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole. That's a vibe that I didn't get in Maryland. It was whole families coming out. I mean, there are brothers who are coming, but they're first generation. It's a brother who took Shahada and his children.
Yeah.
Whereas, in North Carolina, it's a grandfather, his son, his grandson, and his grandson's children. This is what I'm saying in North Carolina.
Now, I witnessed that in Alabama as well.
Mm-hmm.
I witnessed that in Alabama as well. It was more of a family affair with the brothers and sisters down that way. Yeah. I think that may generally be the vibe in the South in general, and Allah knows best.
Maybe.
Now, I haven't been too many places in the South, but when you're talking about Montgomery, Alabama, you're definitely knee deep in the South.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So back to the original question. So now, what were some of the challenges that you believe that you faced that were general that encompassed all of the areas that you've traveled to?
Well, it seems to me, since being back since 2019, since being back since last year, uh, dawah is robotic. I have a saying that I say in my classes. I say, for years, people have been learning rules without tools. It's a numbers game. 3 aspects to Tawheed, 7 conditions to La ilaha illallah, 9 conditions to the prayers, a numbers game. But how that resonates to a person in applying that in their daily life has not been given. Who's to blame? Allahu A'lam. Who's responsible? Whoever has raised their head to give dawah. So although I can't be direct with the blame, I can be direct with the responsibility. The responsibility is whoever is giving dawah has to know why they're giving dawah, when to give dawah, and what to give dawah about. So when I say dawah is robotic, it's just like, okay, it's almost a curriculum that no one goes outside of. It doesn't matter if it actually brings about results or not. And it seems that the du'a don't understand the difference between calling to Islam and calling to a subject in Islam. And calling to Islam will always bring about results by the permission of Allah, while calling to a particular subject may not bring about results. Hence, we see that when someone wants to call to a particular subject, he or she has to make sure that subject is relevant to the people that he or she is calling to Islam. So if we look at the books of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, for example, we find that he has a plethora of writings that are strictly about Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. And rarely do you find him touching on Tawheed al-Ubudiyyah. And if you look at the books in contrast of Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, you see he has a plethora of books concerning Tawheed al-Ibadah. And very rare, if any time, will you find him with the writing about Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. So we see that each of them focused on that which concerned their time and place. Neither of them fell short, but they attacked the issues that were necessary, that the Muslims needed in order to have a renaissance, in order to revive, in order to be what they're considered a mujaddid. Because that was the part of Islam that died in the area, and that's what the people needed in order to practice the whole of Islam once again. So each da'i has to now let go of the curriculum that they're teaching and examine the people that they're calling, in the place that they're calling, and the information that is needed in order to rectify the situation, especially after years, decades, scores of dawah without change. Rather, worse than that, of degradation. So this is a problem that I see. This robotic dawah, okay, these are the books that we're going to teach. SubhanAllah, especially when we're talking about scholars from the 7th and even the 12th century. So what are you going to teach? And like you said, hearing about Salafiyah. So we talk about Salafiyah. So when are we going to teach the works of the Salaf? Mm-hmm. When are we going to teach the works of the first 3 generations? Or because the writing of books began in the the 5th century, at least the first 5. When are we going to go back that far? When is teaching the Quran going to go beyond recitation? You know, and like that. So this is an era that I see going on, this robotic dawah, and because of it, you have stagnation all over the place. People are sticking to a curriculum, and some people are adverse to the curriculum that they're teaching. And it seems that, okay, it's so robotic that no, you will never be a real Muslim unless you accept this curriculum. So is it that we cannot teach Islam without the works? And we know these works are great. We know these scholars are scholars of the Sunnah and they're great. But are we saying, not in statement, but in action, that we can't call to Islam without the books of Sheikh al-Islam Taymiyyah? Can we call to Islam without the books of Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab? Is it possible? What did the verse, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum, this day I completed your religion? What does that verse mean? Because that verse was sent down before these great scholars were even born. So now the du'at have to get well grounded in Quran with Sunnah. So that the first thing that they quote is an ayah. Second is a hadith. And that they attach the people to the book and the Sunnah. And when the people become attached to the book and the Sunnah and realize the infallibility of the book and the Sunnah, then they'll be more able to respect and love the scholars of the Sunnah, because they'll see the greatness of their knowledge when they see how they understood and stuck to the book and the Sunnah. But if not, then we're going to get into a battle that is impossible to win when it comes to the people of innovation, is that it's going to be my sheikh against your sheikh. And they have just the same esteem and respect for the words of their scholars that we have for our scholars. So who wins? Nobody wins at the end. But when we give that infallible dawah, this is what Allah Ta'ala said. And this is what Ibn Mas'ud said about the ayat. This is what, because only two things are going to happen in dawah. Either Allah is going to guide someone through you, or establish the evidence against this person through you. And that's the end of it. So when a person knows that this is the result of dawah, either the person being guided or proof being established against him, then at that point, the person feels more freely to call the people to the verses in the Quran with their understanding and implementation, in the authentic ahadith with their understanding and implementation, and like that. And then after that, this is why Sheikh Ibn Baz, when he was asked, what is the first book of Aqidah that a student should study? He said the Quran. The first book of Aqidah, you should study the Quran. He said, and then after that, the authentic Sunnah. He said, and then after that, the trusted books of the scholars. He said the first book of Aqidah, that's the Quran is Kitab al-Tawheed.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Kitab al-Tawheed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Kitab al-Tawheed. Wa qawluhu ta'ala, wa ma khalaqtu al-jinna wal-insa illa liya'budun. It's not with an قل تعالوا أتلوا ما حرم ربكم عليكم ألا تشركوا به شيئا. Ayah after ayah, this is how the book starts. I mean, this is the book. من أراد أن ينظر إلى وصية النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Whoever wanted to look at the bequest of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, فيقرأ قوله تعالى, and then he recites the ayah. The hadith of Mu'adh bin Jabal. قال كنت رديف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على حمار. I was behind the Prophet on a donkey. وقال لي يا معاذ تعلم حق الله على العباد وحق العباد على الله. To the end of the hadith. So this is how Kitab al-Tawheed goes. Ayah hadith, ayah hadith, ayah hadith. But I have to usul name the same thing. So the Sheikh is calling to those resources. He's calling to those foundations. Our dawah has to be that way. And we wonder why his dawah was so successful and those before him, is because this is what, look at the same thing with Aqidah al-Satiyya. ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. And on and on and on and on and on.
Now, as relates to the unique challenges found within inner city areas from people suffering from varying traumas, yani depression, anxiety, and thus forth and so on, what are the subjects the du'at within inner cities should be focused on to remedy these types of problems?
that really goes back to what I was just saying. If we look at what's plaguing, and I hate to say it, it's not really only an inner city issue, it's worldwide now. Living abroad, what's considered an urban problem is not. I've done youth counseling abroad. I've done drug counseling abroad in Egypt, and it's not an isolated issue. People are losing their iman. People are doubting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People are leaving Islam. And the reason being is that people do not understand that very part of the hadith of Jibreel that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam emphasized, and this is what the dua need to study and emphasize, al-iman bil-qadr khayrihi wa sharrihi. First thing. The people who do not understand that aspect, al-iman bil-qadr khayrihi wa sharrihi. And the main part about it is sharrihi. The Prophet said, he reiterated, وَأَن تُؤْمِنَ بِالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ, and that you believe in the qadr, the good of it and the evil of it. People have to understand the evil of the qadr, the mishaps. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. Allah said, we will test you with something of fear, hunger, the loss of lives, and the toils of your struggles. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. But give glad tidings to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Those who, when a calamity befall them, they say, "Inna lillahi," and to Allah we belong, and to Allah is our return. People normally only say that at death. But Allah mentioned all of these trials: fear, hunger, the loss of lives, toils of your struggles, the fruits of your labor. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. We said, but give glad tidings to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ. He said, those who, if a calamity befalls them, he didn't say if death happens. He said, if a calamity befalls them, قَالُوا, they said, and it said in past tense, even though the indication is for future. If it befell them in the future, this is their reaction, always. إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. That we know this is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We belong to Allah and to Allah's return. أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ. These are the ones that the prayers of their Lord and the mercy descend upon. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. These are the ones who are guided. So if these are the ones who are guided, those who react other than that are not guided. What's very important is to understand that the trauma and the things that take place in the inner city, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. However, the medical field benefits from this. And the scary part about, and some people have criticized me for this, the scary part about being duped by this new social cycle parade, which they're making into just a money scheme. The Muslims have to understand, and I do plan on going, full-fledged into this issue, that all of this trauma and post-traumatic this and all of those things, brothers and sisters, you can go to any doctor you want. They can give you any diagnosis they want. But if they can't diagnose you that the pen is lifted, you're just committing sins. If their diagnosis can't guarantee you that the pen is lifted and you're not being accountable for your outbreaks and your uproar and your disobeying Allah and you're coming out of hijab and you're committing crime and I'm not just talking about crime civilly, I'm talking crime religiously. Because we have a problem with understanding what crime is, which is another subject that, we have to look at crime as what Allah calls a crime, what's punishable in Islam. Even if the laws for being punished for those things are not implemented in the lands we live in. But we still have to feel that we're guilty of a crime, We have to take the angels writing against us more serious than the speed cameras getting your license plate when you speed through a light. So the issue of this trauma, it goes first and foremost to belief in the qadr. Then belief in the qadr is going to lead you to, once you get the correct belief in the qadr, it will lead you to have the proper tawakkul. People don't know how to have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not having proper trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leads them to fall apart when the evil of the decree comes to them. And not having proper tawakkul also stops them from having proper patience. So the qadr, tawakkul, having trust in Allah, and sabr, having patience, these three are what need to be emphasized, because this is what all this trauma and this traumatic and these psychoses are coming from. It's coming from a spiritual issue. It's coming from a lack of iman. And when I say a lack of iman, I'm not even talking about having low iman. I'm talking about not even understanding iman. People don't understand iman in order to have it, high or low. So once the people understand, because remember, when we talk about the qadr, this is when the Prophet, when Jibreel asked the Prophet, "Akhbirni an al-iman," inform me what iman is. So this is a pillar of iman. And this is the biggest difficulty. What makes a sister, because she's been divorced twice or 3 times, come out of hijab? What does wearing hijab have to do with marriage? It's nothing to do with marriage. A brother, he loses his job, or let's say he's ousted by somebody he loves from the community. They say, no, because you listen to so-and-so, you can't be around us anymore. So now because he's ostracized by a particular group, he shaves his beard, he begins clubbing, he goes off, and he, because his feelings are hurt by this particular group. What does those individuals have to do with your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's why Hasan al-Basri used to say, "Man kana yasta'nas billah, la yastawhash an-nas." He said, whoever is seeking his, I don't even know how to translate it. Whoever he seeks his I don't want to call it social, but whoever seeks closeness to Allah, then he's not going to feel lonely if the people abandon him. If his closeness, if he finds his tranquility, if he finds his peace in having a relationship with Allah, then the people won't matter. That's the reality. It doesn't mean that your feelings won't get hurt. It doesn't mean that you will never be disappointed. It doesn't mean that you won't want to have a social life. But if that is stripped from you, you'll be able to accept it if you have a relationship with Allah. But if you don't have a relationship with Allah, I don't care how many people you have a relationship with, you will always be lonely, and you will always be needy and impoverished to the people. So, this trauma is it's a problem, and it's a problem how we understand it. Let's look at the woman who her son died, and the Prophet wants to console her. And she said, "What do you know?" And then people told her, that was the messenger of Allah you were just talking to. And then she raced back to the messenger of Allah to apologize. Today they call it what she did to the messenger of Allah, they call that PTS, right? Right? Post-trauma syndrome. So when she realized that she had spoken to the messenger of Allah, who all of his sons had died, she went and apologized. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? Innama sabru inda sadmatul ula. He said, indeed, he said, innama as-sabru inda sadmatul ula. He said, patience is at the first blow of a calamity. So he didn't accept PTS. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't accept it. He didn't say, "Oh no, I understand your son just died. I know you didn't mean it. You have to vent. You have to let it out." This is the stuff that's fed to the Muslims. This is not our medication. We say no. What did the Prophet say as he's burying Ibrahim, his son Ibrahim, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And Umar said, "Hatta anta ya Rasulullah." He said, "Even you cry when these things happen?" He said, "The eyes shed tears, and the heart feels sad, but we do not say that which displeases our Lord." This is how the Muslim handle trauma. We don't speak out of turn. The hadith in Tirmidhi, the Prophet ﷺ said that what? Indeed, the son of Adam, la yalfadhu bi kalimatin. He can say a word, min sakhtillah, la yu'ti laha bala. He said he can say a statement from the anger of Allah, from that which displeases Allah, that he doesn't give it any consideration. Yahwi biha fi nari jahannam sab'ina kharifa. And because of it, he will be cast into the hellfire 70 autumns, 70 years. So people feeding the Muslims, no, you can vent. how can you vent when your statements are from your actions? Now,
Um, we're going to close out on that point.
no.
But I wanted to give you the floor if you wanted to direct the brothers and sisters to anything, or if you had any last comments by Allah's permission, then I wanted to give you the floor to make that now, inshallah.
I mean, my only comment, I guess I could say, based on the questions that were asked and the subjects that were mentioned, is that search for solutions, because any and everybody can mention the problem that's going on. Search for solutions based on what you know from those who you trust, and be sincere in that. There's a characteristic that is lacking, and it aids the division that exists in the ummah, and that characteristic is loyalty. And this is a must. So search for solutions and know that everybody's not going to be saved. Allah created the heaven and He created the hellfire. So search for solution and apply those solutions to your situation sincerely from those who you trust. Now,
Yeah, barakallahu fiqh. Yeah, I think that that message is very important, especially in this day and time. We have things that are taking place in the society today, and there seems to be a lot of people complaining about the problems. And so you may find a person uh, addresses the Muslims and rants for about an hour or however long their rant may be, and they're mentioning things that are factual, that are factually taking place within the society, things that are befalling the Muslims, regardless of what angle or perspective that I may come from. But a lot of times, I don't. When I take the time to listen to things of that nature, I don't see too many solutions. It seemed like it appears that it turned into an hour-long rant, as opposed to mobilizing the people in a direction that will benefit them as it relates to overcoming whatever the issue is that needs to be overcame. And so I definitely see that as golden advice to the Salafis specifically
yeah.
and to the Muslims in general, because we're facing varying types of problems that are not just specific to the correcting of an individual's creed. We're suffering from financial problems. We're suffering from some of the things that you mentioned as it relates to the varying types of trauma. We have children coming of age, and we go to certain areas within the states, and there is no institutions that were established for the benefit of the upbringing of our children, basic schools and things of that nature. And one of the sad things that I'm finding, you're aware of what I've been trying to do as it relates to the Talha Islamic Ministry, or I believe you're aware of that, is that I find that a lot of brothers have an opinion on what should be done. And I'm always willing to listen to and accept people's opinions and suggestions and things of that nature. But then they'll suggest something that necessitates some follow through, that necessitates some investigating. And not necessarily on my part, but on their part, they have the tools with them to aid that suggestion, and there's literally no follow through. There's literally no follow through. And so we go right back to the same old situation of we've targeted a problem, we're talking about it and we're not bringing necessary solutions to the table to eliminate that problem. Or in some cases, we're not doing what would be necessary to effectively correct that problem. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala knows best.
No.
Without a doubt, inshallah, I definitely want to have you around a little bit more as it relates to some of the insights and wisdoms that you have to convey to the people when dealing with some of these particular subject matters, inshallah.
Inshallah.
But with that, we're almost 2 hours in now, about 10 minutes shy of 2 hours. So we'll conclude the session, this particular session for now. And inshallah, we'll look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Anytime, inshallah.
Barakallahu fiqh. With that, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.